What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here to do my video covering the hiring of Mike McDaniel. As promised, I told you guys I was going to be making it today, so here I am to do that. And let's go ahead and jump right into it, because look, man, we got a very promising candidate and now, officially head coach of the Miami Dolphins, where there's a lot of optimism. Let me just say right off the bat that I was pleased to see that this whole ordeal with Brian Flores and the lawsuit and everything was not enough to scare him off. I'm glad he stuck it through, and I'm glad to see that, he is actually now the Miami Dolphins head coach. Because there's a lot of upside to this guy and a lot of potential. And the one thing, let me just start off because I have an article that I want to read through a little bit to talk to you guys about this. Let me just start off by saying that the one concern that I have is not really about Mike McDaniel really at all. It's just more so about, the organization, because, now getting rid of Brian Flores, who definitely was one of the biggest toxic pieces in that whole puzzle, it doesn't remove everything. There are still issues with Stephen Ross, with Chris Greer. They still have their shortcomings and their faults, and they are still the root of a lot of the dysfunction and stuff. This organization hasn't been the best at drafting and developing players, so there are a lot of things that do need to be overcome and a lot of things that do need to be proven by Mike McDaniel, but there is a lot of hope and potential and certainly optimism. I am personally cautiously optimistic that things can, finally turn around for this team. And so let's go ahead and jump right into the whole mix and start talking about it. So 49ers Mike McDaniel and Dolphins agree to a head coach contract as Brian Flores' replacement. The Miami Dolphins agreed to terms on a deal to make San Francisco 49ers Offensive Coordinator Mike McDaniel their next head coach on Sunday. Adam Schefter of ESPN, who broke the news that a deal was in the works, reported McDaniel signed a 4-year contract, which is right. Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero of NFL Network provided more details. Start off by saying that they were working on a deal. He was one of the finalists between him and Kellen Moore, and they went with Mike McDaniel. Now, Kellen Moore was never on my list. You can go back and look at the video. Check out the video I made about the top head coaching candidates. There were 8 in total, although the 8th guy on the list was Vance Joseph, and the only reason why I put him on was because he was, according to reports, he was a realistic possibility. So I decided to put him on the list and make sure I covered him just because of the potential, but thank God he wasn't. And, most of those candidates, though, were coaches who have previous head coaching experience, because obviously Mike McDaniel does not have that, but he does actually have a decent amount of experience overall, about 15, 16 years in the league. And he's actually had experience with a number of organizations, which I think is important. And comparatively speaking to, before I continue on here, comparatively speaking to Brian Flores, I think he has a leg up in a lot of departments. One of which being, you can look at the coaching tree situation. The Shanahan coaching tree is way better than the Bill Belichick coaching tree. So that's a win for McDaniel. You look at the fact that he's gotten to go to different organizations, experience different schemes, different philosophies, gain those connections, gain that little bit of a Rolodex, right? Because one of the things is he might even be getting Vic Fangio, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I wouldn't mind if they leave the defensive staff as is, because they have shown some success, and that's another thing that's a bonus for Mike McDaniel, and a 180 from Brian Flores is that he seems to be aware of and understand his shortcomings and the areas in which he's not as proficient, like on the defensive side of the ball, and is willing to work with the guys who have been here and provide that continuity, while also having guys who should at least theoretically know what they're doing and how to employ these guys. So, look, I do think that there is a lot of, wonderful things to be said about this dude. Like, he's a young guy who does seem to be very, very bright, right? And he doesn't seem to be an egotistical kind of guy, right? Another 180 from Brian Flores. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that, can't get along with others. I actually think that he will be able to manage the personalities in the locker room and so on and so forth. So anyway, let's continue on though. New Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel is multiracial, which is true, is the first minority head coach hired in the cycle. Lovie Smith actually became the second one. He got the Houston Texans job. Interestingly enough, Brian Flores actually and his lawyers came out today and were like, yeah, we think he didn't get the job for the Texans because we filed this lawsuit. Well, that's a risk you guys took, and maybe that was part of the consideration, even though Nick Caserio and Brian Flores are supposedly friends and so on and so forth. So, but look, Brian, you should be happy because they hired a minority head coach, and there were two in the cycle. Mike McDaniel was the other one, right? So, but anyway, that's a whole mess. I think Brian Flores has a long way to go into proving all of that, and he's most likely just going to end up getting squashed at the end of the day. So, if he doesn't come with some serious hardcore proof. But anyway, the 49ers do also receive 2 third-round compensatory picks for it. Let's see. And so this is talking a little bit about, the fact that he's willing to keep the defensive staff in place or whatever. I wouldn't mind that. I would prefer Vic Fangio over Boyer personally, but I don't hate it, and it does say good things about McDaniel, honestly. So, definitely don't hate that by any stretch of the imagination, and it could be actually a good thing because then that would allow him to focus on the offensive side of the ball. And let's also say, before we continue on, we know that he's going to focus on the offensive line in the run game, and one of the other potential bright spots of this is he has said that he does believe in Tua and that he think he can get the most out of him. And I think there's reason to believe that because one of the issues that we've had with Tua, first of all, with me, that for Tua, it's never been the player or the person, but the potion and all the things around him that were my concerns. But I do think but one of the actual potential concerns is would he be able to translate that RPO offense and the things that he did there, his elite accuracy, anticipation, all of those things, would that be able to translate to the NFL? And with the kind of West Coast style offense that Mike McDaniel runs, he should be able to do that, right? He's going to heavily involve the run game. He's going to find creative ways to get and scheme his wide receivers open. It's going to be a highly efficient, fast, rhythmic kind of offense, which suits to his skill set. So I think like I said, there is a lot of room for optimism as to why this could be a wonderful thing for this organization. Now, again, he still has to, prove it all. And, the staff does have to come together. But I think that he seems like a guy that can make it all work. And so I am cautiously optimistic. And he does have my support 110%. The Dolphins chose McDaniel to replace Flores, who was fired on January 10th despite posting a 9-14 record. He also had the shit year the first year. He went 1-7. I hate when people say that, bro, because you can't discount or discredit the first year. You can't dismiss it, rather. You have to have that as part, and he was part of that. He helped to design the motherfucking team. He had a hand in all the transactions, and I think there's ample evidence to say that he was trying to throw games on game day. So you can't leave the first year out. He absolutely 100% in my evaluation signed on to that, even if he didn't accept $100,000 payments for losses. So, I think that's bullshit. But anyway, and then of course he went 1-7 to start this year, which there was no excuse for at all. So anyway, although Miami didn't make the playoffs under the 40-year-old, he did lead them to back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 2003. And that's cool and all, but I want, just like theoretically what most Dolphins fans want, is long-term sustained success. And at the end of the day, bro, he just wasn't that great of a coach. At best, he's probably, a defensive coordinator. That is his ceiling. I don't think he makes a good head coach. And back to, McDaniel's, awareness and ability to, awareness of his own, shortcomings and ability to, do things to minimize that, work with other people, et cetera, et cetera. Brian Flores, he he doesn't know how to work with people, bro. And Mike McDaniel seems like the kind of guy who can work with people and, build those relationships so that way you don't have a toxic culture, but you have one that is, filled with communication and cooperation and chemistry and all of that stuff, right? And so, I think that is a complete 180 from where Brian Flores was, and I'm optimistic, cautiously, but I am optimistic. That led to the speculations of why Flores was fired after 3 years, despite being a well-respected coach among many players. Honestly, I think it was just a handful of guys like fucking Byron Jones and Igbenogany and a couple guys. I honestly don't think the player support for Flores was really all that high. Per Rappaport, the frustration and tension between general manager Chris Grier and Flores, and there's a little video, I'm not going to play it, but it was intense, but it wasn't just them. Reporters talked about it. Ex-coaches talked about it. Ex-players talked about it. Current players have talked about it. Brian Flores is a dickhead, and his ceiling is that. Oh, and I wanted to say a minute ago, I kind of lost in my train of thought, but as you guys know, Mike McDaniel was one of only 2 first-time head coaches. The other one was Brian Daboll, and I had Mike McDaniel over Daboll personally, but he was only one of 2 first-time head coaches that I even considered. The rest were veteran guys, and at the top of my list was Jim Harbaugh. Sean Payton was actually second after he sprung free, even though I knew that he was retiring. It was just a pipe dream, whatever. I actually forgot to put Doug Peterson on the list, but he would have been up there. And then, who was the other one? Oh, Jim Caldwell was the 4th one that for sure I would have kept ahead of Mike McDaniel no matter what. Because they have for sure, Rolodexes. They've got tons of experience in the league. They have proven track records and as head coaches. So it's not just, a lot of time in the league, but as a head coach as well. And with Jim Harbaugh, for example, I thought he would be the most assured way to keep Stephen Ross out of the equation because he would hand over the reins completely. But for sure, Mike McDaniel was my top choice. And I did have 2 other head coaches, previous head coaches, Dan Quinn and Leslie Frazier ahead of McDaniel. But there is a good argument when you look at the potential of McDaniel and the ceiling of McDaniel to say that he deserves to be ahead of those guys. Because much like Brian Flores, I think that Leslie Frazier and Dan Quinn are really just best suited as coordinators and don't really have what it takes to be head coaches, right? So there's a good argument for why you would have Mike McDaniel ahead of those guys, for sure. But he was ultimately, 6th on my list, out of 8, just because, again, I had those 5 guys ahead of him. Doug Peterson wasn't actually included in that list because I forgot to put him in the list, but those guys were ahead of him just because of their veteran experience. But again, Mike McDaniel does have 15, 16 years in the league, and he's done a lot of good things, with the different teams that he's been with. So anyway, Flores is now suing the Dolphins, blah, blah, blah. The Dolphins interviewed numerous candidates, but ultimately settled on a pair of finalists, McDaniel and Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. McDaniel reportedly interviewed for the Dolphins for 10 hours on Friday, per Peter Schrager. Moore spoke with Miami on Saturday. I think that was also a pretty lengthy interview. By the way, Kellen Moore, I was never really, nothing against him or anything, but he didn't really excite me, and he wasn't even on my list. So now the Dolphins turn to McDaniel, who will be the team's 8th head coach in 20 years. And by the way, listen, Ross still has his issues. Grier still has his issues. But I'm hoping, and this is part of why I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm hoping this will actually prove to be the first time that the Dolphins made a good decision. And really the right decision. Because if he can put a good staff together and everything, and if he can be that 180 from Brian Flores in all the ways that he was negative and toxic, I think that he stands a good chance. But as we've seen with the Dolphins, until it actually plays out over the next few years, the past 15 years are gonna provide me with a little bit of room to pump the brakes, right? Room for caution, right? Because they just find a way. And as we've seen even recently, if it's not one thing, it's another with this Dolphins team and organization. So anyway, we'll see how it plays out. But let's go ahead and continue. Pelissero reported Tuesday that Miami put in a request to interview the 38-year-old who's the 49ers run game coordinator from 17 to 20 before receiving a promotion to offensive coordinator for 2021. The Dolphins put in a request, blah, blah, blah. The Yale grad is Kyle Shanahan's longtime right-hand man and run game guru. Look, and he's going to, if they keep Mike Gesicki, he'll utilize him, Jalen Waddle. I think that, Duke Johnson and Philip Lindsay he can do good things with. I do think that there are some foundational pieces that he can work with, and certainly I believe that he is going to put a higher emphasis into the run game and the offensive line, and I do think that he can fix these issues. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, of course. And look, by the way, if they ever do things and make moves that I don't like, I'm going to keep it real with you as I always do. But I am 100% on board with this hiring, and he does have my full support. And I do like him as a person, and as a coach, certainly in ways that I didn't like Brian Flores. Again, I didn't really like much of anything from the past regime. They were terrible at drafting and developing. There was all that toxicity and drama. I didn't agree with the tank, which, by the way, we can go ahead and say that that was a failure, not just because we had to replace our head coach, but because in 3 years, at least, we have yet to in that 3 years, we have yet to get to the goal of sustained success. So we haven't even achieved success to begin with, let alone sustained success. So, I was never really a part of any of that. But then you look at the head-to-head again. You look at the tree. I'll take Shanahan over Belichick any day. You look at the experience that they have. They have roughly the same amount of years, but Brian Flores stayed in one organization the entire time. Mike McDaniel jumped around. I'll take that any day, right? I'll take Mike McDaniel's demeanor and personality any day over Brian Flores. I think it's way more conducive to building good chemistry and a good culture, a positive vibes kind of culture. Anyway, McDaniel's resume also included 2 years as an offensive assistant under ex-Falcons offensive coordinator and current 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan in 15 and 16. He worked with wide receivers from Washington football team in 13, the Commanders now, and Cleveland Browns in 14, among other stops in an NFL career that began in 05 as a Denver Broncos assistant. The 49, and he's gotten to see how it's done in all these different organizations. Now, you would like to see a little bit better than this, but this has certainly been better than what the Dolphins have experienced. So even if you gave Tua the 18th, 14th, 8th, or 17th rushing attack, Tua would be a lot more fucking efficient, and we would have been able to do way more with this offense in general. Anyway, but those are his yards per carry during McDaniel's 4 seasons as the run game coordinator for the Niners. This year's offense finished 13th in points per game. Shanahan and McDaniel collaborated to find creative ways for their best players to touch the ball. For example, Deebo Samuel finished the year with 1,770 total yards, 1,405 rushing, 365 receiving, and 14 touchdowns. He recorded 59 carries and 8 scores on the ground. Ultimately, the Niners seemingly get the most out of their offensive talents, and was the case when San Francisco made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Now McDaniel will be tasked with doing the same in Miami. His relationship with third-year quarterback Tua Tagovailoa will be crucial as the team looks to rebound from finishing just number 22nd in scoring. Ultimately, McDaniel's coming into Miami as an offensive guru, and the Dolphins hope he can rectify a unit that hasn't finished top 6 in the NFL in scoring since 1994. All right. And so that does basically wrap this video up. I think you guys get the idea. Obviously, like I said, you guys know, and I mean, if you followed me for the past 3 years, you know that I was the fucking guy, telling everybody about who Brian Flores is and who Stephen Ross is and all this stuff. And so, it's great that everybody's talking about it now, but I was here to tell you about it from Jump Street. When it became pretty clear who these guys are and that they were the issues. But now we have moved on from that, and we have moved on to a very promising, high potential, high ceiling guy that I think is, like I said, and I have detailed throughout this, he is the exact opposite. Oh, and, the kind of offense that he's going to provide to it, right? All of it. So it's good. There is definitely a ton of optimism to be had, room for optimism. And so, at the end of the day, I am a prove it kind of guy. So I've had this, one experience with the Dolphins the past 15 years or so. 15, 20 years, that's just been disappointment toxicity, drama, dysfunction, all of that. That's been the story so far. So because of that, the track record, there's always going to be some hesitancy. I'm not going to be able to just, dive in full bore and say I have faith that everything's going to work out. I do have to wait and see how it plays out. And, it does actually have to get written into the fucking record books, into history, into the stone tablets, and it has to bear fruit and come to fruition. So, but having said that, this is the first time in a while for me that I do have room for optimism with this team and with this organization, and certainly with the head coach that we have, and think that he certainly can, he has it, man. I think he has the tools that he needs to do it. He just will have to overcome some things that put him at a little disadvantage with this organization in particular. But I am optimistic for it, and I am excited to see how it plays out. And so, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I love the hiring. Like I said, 100% on board with it. And I am eager to see how things go. And now that we do have our head coach, we can start going ahead and moving into the off season, which I will be starting to do very soon, taking a deep dive position by position, going into each one. By the way, just want to say I'm not quite ready. I don't think I'm quite ready at this point with my knowledge base and understanding of, these college teams and their prospects and these players and stuff to do like a big board myself quite yet. Hopefully if I'm still doing this next year, then maybe I'll be ready by then, especially because this upcoming season, I'm going to look to watch a little bit more college football as well. Dive more into that and dedicate myself to doing that more so I can be more up to date and, in tune with these prospects, get bigger sample sizes, etc. But for now, for this season, I think what I'm going to do is, at various points, I'll probably bring in big boards from, the experts and analysts and stuff like that, just to kind of show you what they're thinking and looking at. And because that's going to be part of my information base too. So, and then I'll just tell you if I differ on any of the different evaluations or whatever and stuff like that. But I will be doing, personal rankings in the position by position breakdowns, because I'll be doing individual videos for each position group and, for draft and free agency. And I will let you guys know, I'll do, my homework on the individual players, because I'm probably going to do like, 5 to 10 players probably at most per position group that I will be looking into, and it'll be based off of a lot of, because unfortunately I don't have, the all 22 and access to that. So I am going to be pooling my information from, all the different analysts and experts and the different, ESPN, CBS, Fox, all the different sources, social media. I'm going to comb the information stream, take in as much as I can and give you guys the best evaluations. But I am still very raw in my ability to evaluate all of this stuff. So work with, I hope you work with me here a little bit. I will hopefully, get better. I will get better. But right now it is kind of basic and a little bit raw. So just so you guys know, I will be doing that though. And I am taking a bigger step this off season to get more involved in those things so I can continue to grow and expand and provide you guys with better and more detailed. And then maybe eventually I'll start getting into like actually doing, my own breakdowns once I, if I can get a couple years of, watching college football and stuff, maybe I'll actually be able to give you my own evaluations of the individual players and maybe do player evaluation videos and stuff like that. But anyway, with that, let me go ahead and wrap this up. Before I do, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all your sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like, they got it, and they are looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself, while also providing you with an arena to dispute all of the terrible officiating. So make sure you check out the links to that in the description box. And with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro, as well as on Instagram at Dolphins_with_Dillon. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
Tannehill will throw. Miami wins it.